These jobs carry risks with them. In social work, I've had knives drawn on me. I've been threatened with a gun before. I've had somebody chase me through a basement. We live in a society where we are tools for a corporation to make more money, and that's really depressing, and it's not going to fulfill you and leave you feeling good at the end of the day. Recognize when people love you. Like, it's a big deal that you have people caring for you and they're choosing to spend their most valuable resource, which is time, to express that they love and care about you. And that's freaking huge, dude.
Life is a journey, yours starts here. If you're feeling lost, then have no fear. There's always a seat at the tavern, as the legend goes, where the fire's warm and the ale flows cold. You can share your story, whether you're young or old. Tell tales of your glories or sorrows. If things are going great or you're down on your luck, spent too much of the same and you're feeling stuck, share what you know on Gamers Growing Up. GGUP. GGUP. GGUP.
Welcome back to Gamers Growing Up, the show where we hop into your favorite video games and chat about the main quests of life, finding purpose, building success, and spreading love. This week, we welcome my friend Joe. Joe, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being on.
That was so good. Thank you for having me. A pleasure, an honor to be on Gamers Growing Up.
Joe, if you want to introduce yourself a little bit to the listeners, tell us who you are, where you're from, if you're comfortable, what age you are, and what you do for work.
Oh, for sure. Okay. So I'm originally from the suburbs of Chicago. I've lived in 4 states. I'm 27, a ripe 27. I'm single and ready to mingle. Yes, I'm currently working as a social worker, basically, and I'm going back to grad school. So that's my deal.
Oh, exciting. A lot to dig into. We always like to talk at first about what game are we playing right now? What did you choose? Why did you choose it? And what does it mean to you?
I love Baldur's Gate, but that wasn't happening today. The definitive edition of Divinity? Is that the name of it?
Yeah, Divinity Original Sin 2 is where we settled on because we were going to play Baldur's Gate and realized that the recording setup we had, it would take forever to download. So we both had Divinity, and I've played it a lot. You are just getting into it, but both by Larian Studios, who makes pretty awesome games that I think both of us have had quite a lot of fun in.
It looks very cool, and I will definitely be jumping into many hours of this at some point.
And I hope you do. It's a wonderful game.
Now I have
We like to start off every episode by asking one question, and that question is, in your life at this moment, what is the most important to you right now?
Oh, that's a lovely little touch base. Figure out what you're prioritizing. I would say right now, the most important thing to me is doing a good job at my work. I love my job. It's the best job I've ever had in my life. I get to work with kids. I get to basically just be a good person and make sure they're not ruining their lives, and then hopefully plan for like adulthood and transition age sort of stuff, like helping them find a job, helping them go to college, whatever they're gearing up for. And then there's also like a mental health aspect. If they want to see a therapist, facilitating that sort of stuff. I love my job. I love showing up to work, and I just really want to do a good job when I'm showing up for these kids.
Let me just say that is awesome. I think it's really rare to hear people like truly love their job and look forward to going in. And it's really cool, and it's going to be a lot of fun to dive into why that is and insights that people can glean from your experience to help them get in such alignment with their work and what they value, as it sounds like you've found. So let's talk a little bit about what you do. So you said that you're a social worker. Can you tell us a little bit about the day-to-day? You touched on a little bit, but like in your average week, what are the tasks you're doing day-to-day in your job? And then if you could give us a general sense of your field, what does it mean to be a social worker? What type of things could people expect? And
Okay. I am definitely going to ask clarifying questions on a bunch of those because I have
good.
scroll brain sometimes. Day to day, that's easy. I have a caseload. I have kiddos that I see weekly or bi-weekly.
What
So I
age
start
kids
the
do you work
day,
with?
yeah, anywhere from 8 to 22, I think is the cutoff. But my oldest kiddo right now is 19.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm in the community, so I'm meeting these kiddos either at their home or at a public library. We love public libraries. I live in Pittsburgh, so that's really easy for me because Pittsburgh is flush with libraries.
Oh, that's awesome.
Public service announcement, if you aren't going to your public library, start doing that because 'cause they're in trouble. But yeah, that's my day to day. I'm seeing kiddos. It's built through the mental health aspect, and then there's, like, extra stuff we put on that. So a lot of the kiddos I work with are recently discharged from the psych hospital we have in town. The big one, if you know, you know. So recent discharges, and usually we're meeting these kids after what has probably been one of the hardest things they can go through in life so far. So a lot of what we do is like providing stability and like a direction in a time where most people are lost.
I think that's really noble work to be helping some of society's most vulnerable, like children who are struggling. Does that give you a lot of satisfaction and value? Is
Oh
that
yeah,
part, you think
I
that's part
think
of why you love your job so much?
that's the easy jump. Whenever I say that sort of stuff, people are like, "Oh, I see why you enjoy your job because you're doing things that
Feel meaningful.
yeah, feel meaningful and also are very naturally human, in my opinion. I think we exist to help each other figure out this crazy thing we call life. Being able to do that as a job is just the ultimate blessing in my mind.
And would you say that's pretty typical of the field of social work, or have you found a really specific niche within it that lets you do this meaningful work?
So fun fact about me, I did case management with adults in West Virginia for about a year. Not the same story. Very different story, actually. I loved it, don't get me wrong. I still was, like, very keen to go to work. I never called in, I never had a sick day, even when I wasn't feeling great, because I knew what I was going and doing was important, but the difference in social work between adults and kids is adults, it's like a controlled descent, is how you can think of it, whereas with kids, you're trying to lift them up where they are. With adults, you have clients die pretty regularly. I was
Oh,
working
wow.
with like homeless population, substance abuse, very severe mental health issues. It's not uncommon for these adults to pass away, sadly, or be hospitalized, and you're just like keeping tabs on them basically until something changes. So yeah,
Hey,
I
quite
love
grim
social work.
stuff.
Yeah, yeah. I That's the thing about this work. You have to be very close with these people and at the same time recognize that you have to keep yourself sane through the process. So I think I've developed a very thick skin when it comes to this sort of stuff, which can be unsettling to people sometimes. So I apologize if I'm putting anybody off right off the rip.
And I think something that would be great to clarify, so you're not a therapist, but
No.
you work with some of them. Could you talk a little bit about, like, the distinction there?
Yes, absolutely. So, a lot of my work is validation, active listening, trying to slow things down, encouraging people to use skills. Those skills are something you would learn in a typically therapeutic setting. I'm not qualified, or that's not my bag when it comes to the patient interaction. Like a therapist would set the groundwork for us to hit the path running, hopefully.
Oh, alright, so you're facilitating the growth of those skills that they learn in a place like therapy.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. In your typical week, what do you find the most rewarding, and what do you find the most frustrating?
Oh, another lovely question. Little touch base. Oof. As far as most rewarding, that's a tricky one. I think just having a real social moment where you're talking with someone and they're making real progress as far as like making some revelations about the life path they're on and having some sort of balance to the chaos because humans, we live in chaos, but we're trying to make meaningful situations out of that chaos, hopefully, at the end of the day. That's the
Mhm.
difference between somebody who's prospering versus somebody who's on the side of the river in the weeds. So that's definitely something I love to see with my clients. Most
Making something
discouraging would
useful out of
be,
chaos. Quite an
yeah,
interesting way to put that.
yeah.
Nice.
That's life. It's all distances. We're trying to get somewhere, and it's a matter of time and distance before we get there. I guess the flip side of that, and also the answer to your follow-up question on that one, most discouraging would be when people are really stuck on the side of the path and they've decided this is where I'm going to chill out for a while. I see this a lot with conflict in particular. Conflict is very messy and it's something that's so opinionated and personal. It's hard to figure out a path from there because we make these things very personal. So it feels like the end all be all. I'm right, they're wrong. I'm the bad person, they're a good person. Like we live in this
Mm.
dialectic that can be quite tricky, and it's hard to see my clients accept that as the gospel truth because there's not a lot you can do about that other than provide active listening or support or recognize with them that there are other paths they could be following.
I think it seems really apt to ask you specifically. The whole point of this show is to help people find their path. We're talking to
Mhm,
people about the journeys they've been on and what's working, what's not working. But I know that there are very deep valleys that you can fall into on any path. A lot of those things
mhm.
can be circumstances that are out of your control or things that spiral. I want to give you a chance here to plug what are some resources for people if they really find that their life is going in a way that feels out of control or feels like too much? Is there anything anywhere they can reach out to?
There's like the corporate answer to this, which I will provide because it is a great resource. If you're in the Pittsburgh area and you are struggling and you feel unsafe in whatever sort of circumstance you're finding yourself, whether that be mentally or physically, Resolve Crisis Intervention is a great resource for people in Pittsburgh. I think they service all of the county actually. So if you're outside of Pittsburgh, that's also still a great resource. More pragmatic, because I don't think all of Pittsburgh is listening to this podcast.
And if they're not,
We
share it with your
for
friends.
Yeah, exactly. Share it with a Yinzer. We don't actually call ourselves that, but go for it. More pragmatically, we forget how much people actually care about us when we're in that sort of zone. If you do have an old friend or somebody that you do trust or feel comforted by, or in the past they've been there for you, or you've been there for them in the past, like talk to them. We can't figure stuff out by ourselves. We need people. Use your natural resources that you have around you, if applicable.
Thank you for sharing that. And yes, if you're struggling, please find help. It's never the right solution to just be by yourself. It only makes
Mhm.
things worse, is the message that I will
Yep.
push because it's something that I really believe. So, Joe, I want to ask in the same vein, what's the greatest obstacle that you've faced? I think we've already been talking about this, like this loss and the sadness. Is it that, or is there a particular moment or something where you were really like, wow, this is hard?
I would say working with adults was that hurdle because I had, I think it was like 3 clients pass away in the matter of a couple months, and the clients that I did have were doing, long story short, not the wisest decisions that they could be making. I was just struggling to be like, "Am I really making a difference?" And then you fall into that rabbit hole of equating what the world looks like around you to real progress, when in reality, progress is nonlinear, which is a fun thing we gotta remind ourselves of regularly.
And you talk a little bit about that. What does that mean? Progress is nonlinear.
Oh, yeah, it's an idea, it's popular in, like, pop psychology. We forget that to get where we are, there were a whole bunch of steps. If you're finding yourself in a place that you're doing really well, we discount the moments where we weren't doing so well, when in
And
reality,
the
all of
inverse of
those
that.
steps were necessary.
Yeah, that
Yeah,
makes a lot of sense. Something very good to keep in mind, whether things
yeah,
are going
it's all
well or not.
yeah.
I happen to have the creed that everything's always working out. And I think keeping that mindset can be more useful than you would think. That,
Oh, yeah. It's a very powerful mindset.
yeah, trusting in yourself that you'll find a solution, even if it's not exactly what you want, when you want it, how you want it. There are paths through almost all of life's challenges. But
Sure.
bringing things back right towards your profession so far, can you tell us a little bit about your path and how you got to where you are? Did you go to school? What jobs did you work along the way? And if you can share some insights into how you got those jobs, if it was networking or qualifications or something else, an event you went to, I'd love to hear how you would describe your journey up to where you are in your career right now.
Oh, it's a hot mess. Where do you want me to start?
So the show is focusing from like the time when you're graduating high school onwards. So from
Okay.
there, Joe just finished high
Oh,
school. What's he doing?
oh my gosh. Okay. So there's like a lot of backstory there. I'll try and shorten it. So I was in the midst of graduating high school when I had a child on the way with
Oh,
my
wow.
partner at the time. Yeah. Long story short, I'm not a father currently, so that didn't happen. So going into college, I was of the mind that I would be raising this child and like all of these things would be happening and they didn't happen. So I
Mhm.
pivoted really quickly and thankfully I had very good friends, still have a very good friend named Tommy. Shout out to Tommy. Love you. He pushed real hard for us to be roommates in college. We got accepted into the same school. Financially, I was very blessed to have received a scholarship, and what wasn't covered, my parents said that they would help me out with.
Very
So,
nice.
a lot of things lined up for me to very quickly pivot from what I was planning on doing to going to nursing school.
What
That
were
being
you
said,
originally planning?
to be a stay-at-home dad that like works weekends, that was the
Oh,
goal.
okay. So then you switched
Yeah.
to nursing school.
Yes. Nursing school didn't work out. I fell into some addiction. There was a long period where I did not know what was going on, but thankfully, my beautiful family, they said, "Hey, come move up to Wisconsin. We see that like things aren't going great. Help us raise our kids." And I got to spend 4 beautiful years in Wisconsin where I figured myself out. I'm celebrating 5 years sober this year. So
Congratulations.
that's Thank you. That's something I'm really proud of. While I was on that sort of journey, I switched my major a bunch of times. Another sort of callback to progress not being linear. If you
Mhm.
picked any sort of moment in that story, you would be like, oh, where's this going? Like, where is the end point? And you would have never predicted that I'm in Pittsburgh doing social work at this time.
Could you tell us what,
Uh,
if you remember, all of the different spots you had your sights set when you were switching, or a few
Oh,
of them?
yeah. Oh, yeah. I did nursing at a community college very briefly because I was like
Mhm.
holding out hope. And nursing is a phenomenal profession. Nurses out there, I have so much kudos for them. God bless our nurses. Eventually gave up on that and switched to lab tech because that's a pretty good field to jump into. Or, sorry, no, before lab tech, I did EMS. I got certified as EMS. I think BSL is the certification. And then the pandemic happened, and in
Threw a wrench in everyone's
Wisconsin,
plans. Yeah.
yes, in Wisconsin, our beautiful state, they don't pay EMS providers like anything, and I got a job offer through the big hospital where I was living to be a COVID tester where I would be making like $3 more, and then I also wouldn't have to be a EMS, which is like really brutal work, which is silly because like you would imagine it'd be flipped, but no, that's how we run things.
Yep.
So I was doing COVID testing for a long time while I was finishing my undergrad, and I was helping raise my nephews up in Wisconsin. While I was up there, I think I switched from a paramedic focus to lab tech. And then from lab tech, I realized that like none of my credits would transfer over. So it would be like an additional year or two in school. And at that
Mhm.
point, I think I would have been like 23 or 24 at that point. I wanted to be done with my undergrad. I was like, get me out of here. I'm ready to move on to the next step in life, which is a load of BS. If there's any listeners out there that are like, oh, I just need to finish school and it's all going to be okay after that, not necessarily the case. You should go to school. I'm not saying that. Nothing becomes clearer after you're done.
I completely agree. That is I think there is, like, this dream that is sold almost, that you finish
Mhm.
school, and as long as you commit to it, you do really well, graduate at the top of your class, you're gonna be fine, it's smooth
Mhm.
sailing, and
Mhm.
as much as I would wish to be able to sit here and say that's the case, I don't know anyone that has had a very linear,
No.
simple, peaceful transition into their dream career right out of college.
Yeah.
It's just another new challenge you have to navigate.
And it's important to recognize, like, oh, I am doing a really good job in school. Give yourself props for that. And also recognize that there's a long road ahead of you. Just because you're going to graduate with honors doesn't mean you're going to get a job right away. That's something that a lot of kids really struggle with because there's this expectation of, oh, I got my degree, where's my job? And we'll get into it a little bit, but that was not the case for me. So I switched from lab science to sports medicine, actually. I was trying to get I forget the license right now, but basically like a trainer sort of thing. I briefly worked at a CrossFit gym. That was goofy. I moved from the COVID testing life to a urgent care center where I was a receptionist. And then from there, I started working at an ER at night while going to school, which was very difficult. If you're one of those kiddos that's trying to balance a night shift with school, just do yourself a favor and don't do that. That's a bad choice. There
Just
are
because you felt
easier
like you didn't
paths
have
out
enough time
there.
to sleep?
Yeah.
Or yeah.
Yeah, it's the schedule that I was doing basically made it so I never had a consistent sleep schedule. So anytime I
Oh,
did
lovely.
sleep, it was bad sleep, and sleep's
Mhm.
a little important.
Something you underestimate easily
Yeah.
until you get to a point where you can't anymore. Did you experience
Mhm.
burnout at all during that period where you were having this inconsistent sleep?
I think I got so used to it that I was okay, fortunately.
Mhm.
I also had so much support from so many people. That's another thing that you lose track of. When you have a community built up around you, it's a lot easier to handle those really difficult things because there's the idea of filling your cup. If you have people around you, you have your cup at a baseline
Mhm.
consistently.
I just ask because for me, I didn't experience like real severe burnout until after I was done with I was in this like all nighter culture for most of my degree, like all of it. So I was getting very little sleep, like 4 hours of sleep for a couple years.
Oh,
And
jeez.
then afterwards, I found out that does not come without any consequences. It gets you sometimes when you don't expect it. But I'm
Oh,
glad
yeah.
that your community was able to support you through it.
Yeah, it's the change that really gets you is something we find a lot. Like, you can manage consistency, but when something changes, it's, "Oh, all of that's catching up with me now? Okay."
So true.
Yeah. From the ER, I started working for the college that I was attending, where I was doing peer support, mental health stuff, where I was doing, like, a lot of advocacy, which was really cool. Very neat job to have. And then I graduated and I was helping raise two of my other nephews, or sorry, no, one nephew at that time, also in Wisconsin, but different family. And then the graduation came and I was like, ooh, everything's going to be great. I moved to West Virginia with my partner at the time and I didn't get a job for 5 months, which was like really tough
Yeah.
because I got the piece of paper, whereas my job was like going through my mind. It's not how it works.
It is a hard thing to find out for
Yeah.
sure. So how did
Yeah.
you end up getting that job after the 5 months?
So really quickly, shout out to my community once again. My partner at the time like fully supported me with the difficulties with me not having a job. Obviously, we had an apartment together, so they were covering the rent in full, utilities in full. That's not something everybody gets an opportunity to have where it's, oh, I don't have a job and my bills don't exist right now. So I was very fortunate there. But what ended up happening is I reached out to a professor in college and he actually lived in the city that I moved to in Morgantown for a while. West Virginia. And he was like, I'm going to take care of you. It's going to be okay. That was about 3 months in. It wasn't overnight, but thank goodness I did reach out to this dude because he did end up getting me the job at the like clinic sort of thing that I started working and doing casework at in West Virginia.
Nice. So through that connection that you got from college, I think that's something that a lot of people underestimate. Into when you're considering colleges, where your professors are coming from, because that
Mhm.
professional network you build is I think, one of the most valuable things. We keep seeing the connections from college just like any connections in life, can really be useful when looking for a job.
Yeah. Turns out people super helpful. Don't forget about them.
Okay, so you got that job in West Virginia. What was that?
So that was the case management with adults for social work.
Then you made this transition over to working in Pittsburgh. How did
Yes.
that happen?
So, real quick, I feel like I should mention this because it was important for me to swallow. I had a lot of pride built up where I was thinking to myself, oh, I'm going to graduate from college and do it all on my own. And I don't need help from anyone, which is why I didn't reach out to this professor for 3 months. So, for all those listeners out there that have like potential resources that they could be using. Nobody does it by themselves. It's okay to reach out to people from your past, and they're not going to mind. They're going to be more than happy to help you if they can.
That's good advice.
So, yeah, that's my little plug there. I ended up moving to Pittsburgh after working with adults wasn't going so great. The company that I had been working for, I loved my coworkers, but the way things were managed was a hot mess. So I decided that wasn't something I wanted to continue working with. And I ended up getting this job offer in Pittsburgh that was really fortunate. My partner and I, who I moved to West Virginia, we ended up breaking up, and I wasn't ready to go back to the Midwest. So I decided to take Pittsburgh for a spin.
And were you just applying to jobs that seemed interesting at this time?
So, yeah, I don't remember who exactly. I think one of my coworkers at the job in West Virginia mentioned that like Pittsburgh is a good place for like social work and that sort of stuff. Actually, the CEO at the company, I was talking to him one day, and he mentioned that the intervention that you could potentially work with, which is like my case management team, or rather, I should say, the case management team that I work for. It's not my team. I'm not like a head honcho. He said that on average, I think it's 80% of the kiddos that would end up falling into a severe mental health crisis with our intervention drops down to 20%. And after hearing that
Wow.
statistic, I was like, whoa, that's significant. And it's not adults, which is like the two things that matter to me. So I ended up applying to the business that I currently work for, and I got accepted. Yeah.
That's really awesome. What a nonlinear, to use your phrasing, path,
Mhm.
and a really
Mhm.
interesting one. I think that there's props to you for having the courage to realign so many times. I know that plenty of people feel very locked in. I was one of those. I had my
Mhm.
scholarships, I had the school that was good for what I was doing. And even though early on I was like, I don't know if this is exactly perfectly aligned with me, it's much easier to just barrel down sometimes and hope blindly that things will work out. And sometimes they do. But I think that there's really
Yeah.
something to be said for having the courage to admit when maybe you made a misstep, or if something isn't your as you learn more about it, it's not perfectly aligning with the type of life that you want to have. It's really easy to underestimate how big of an impact your job being aligned with you has on you. At this new job that you love so much, what are you the
Mhm.
most proud of? Is there any one thing that you can look to and be like, this was a really great thing that filled me with a lot of pride?
I started there coming up on 4 months, so I don't have like a ton of moments to pick from.
Oh, so it's still really
Um,
fresh.
yeah. Yeah, I was doing case management in West Virginia for a year-ish, so I'm coming up on my 2nd year doing case management, which is awesome. I think I could be doing this for a while, but we'll see after I get my LCSW because that might change some things money-wise. So, I think the, like, most rewarding thing that I've done so far is help a kid. It's a story, but I'll try and get to the juicy bits. He is very talented, an incredibly talented kid. I was able to see, like, right off the rip, oh, if this kid can activate himself, if he can self-activate himself, he will be so good. He will be fine. Financially, he's going to be successful. Emotionally, he's going to be successful. He just needs to like get over the hump of friction that he's built up over the years with everything that's happened for him. And unfortunately, that wasn't happening. Without saying too much about him, he had fallen into some really negative behaviors, which thankfully his support system was able to help him with. But he was still struggling. He was figuring himself out, also figuring out the worlds, which can be a lot. And I was able to come into the situation and basically say, okay, we need to break this down. We need to go step by step. We need to slow things down to the point where it's manageable and at the same time have real activating change happen. Didn't happen right off the rip. Anybody who works in social work can 100% agree with me. The first time you talk about, oh, this is the stuff I should be doing, usually none of that happens. It would be so much easier if it did, but that's not the world we live in. So after many conversations of being like, these are your priorities, this is the path you could take to get there, he finally gets it one day. And I go with him and his mom to a community college nearby, and he signs up for classes, and I can just see it in his eyes that things have changed. There's a real sense of direction. And that's when I'm like, oh, I'm doing a good job. Thank you. Thank you, the universe. That all being said, there's time left in the game. I predict at least like 20 more missteps before he really feels secure with himself. But that's the nature of change.
Helping people get on better paths is quite a calling. I'm
Yeah,
glad
it's
that you're
fun.
getting so much fulfillment out of it.
Oh, yeah. Me too.
So you mentioned a little bit about compensation, and you don't need to get into really deep specifics, but based on what you were expecting going into the field and then the position you have now, would you say that you are earning enough to live comfortably? And is it around what you were expecting or below, above? How does it compare to your preconceptions?
I think anyone listening to this is aware of the fact that a majority of like social work jobs do not pay well, and it's the field you pick if you're okay with that. And if you're not okay with that, you're setting yourself up for failure, which is a real thing that I saw many times in West Virginia. We aren't paid super great. That being said, I live within my means. I fortunately was able to close on a house up in Pittsburgh because the housing market up there is actually pretty good.
Oh, wonderful.
I have
Congratulations.
thank you, thank you. I have a very supportive family, so when I do have like budget issues or if I don't have enough money for that month for something, I can easily text one of my family members and be like, "Hey, help!" So I
Huge.
huge. No, like that's an incredible thing to be able to rely on. That being said, I do still have a nasty bit of pride, so I will go without buying groceries for a month if that means I don't have to reach out, which I should probably get over. That would be helpful. But I'm
Oh, yeah.
okay. I'm good as I am.
Yeah, tackling pride, much easier said than done. I think
Mhm.
many people can agree with,
Oh, yeah.
especially with something like that, something so dire in consequence, whether or not you can
Yeah,
eat.
yeah. I haven't gone hungry, and
That's good.
another plug I'll put out there is food pantries are for whoever needs food, which is everyone. It might take a little bit of pride to swallow, but that's an incredible resources that most cities have, and it might not be the best food, but it is food. So if you are struggling to find food, there's plenty of resources online as far as finding food pantries and definitely people to help you get set up with that.
So, do you have any goals, things that you're working towards in your career on like a large scale? What are you aiming towards?
Yeah, I am actually going back to grad school this fall and hopefully getting my LCSW,
Just some
which
type of
in the
license or certification?
yeah, in the world of social work, it has the pseudonym of the golden ticket, which is I think very funny given the nature of the field. Having a weird Willy Wonka analog almost feels satirical. So that's what I'm reaching for. I'll probably get it in 4 years or so. There's a bunch of like practicum hours that you have to finish before you're able to do that. And then there's like state licensure. But that's what I'm currently reaching for occupationally.
And that what opens up higher paying jobs or what do you get out of it? Why does it have this moniker of golden ticket?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's a dramatic pay increase paired
Ah,
with the you can almost it's not a perfect one-to-one sort of example, but you can think of it as like the doctor title in like the medical fields for social work. The LCSW is basically the like doctor title for social workers.
yeah, like engineers, architects, I know need licenses. There's plenty of fields that need licensure, and it's
Mhm.
usually not as straightforward as getting it right away. There's a lot of hoops to
No.
jump through in any field.
That's a
Well,
good thing, though. I have a hot
for
take there.
sure.
It's a good thing that takes time because a lot of people need to take time to learn those things. That's all right.
In as far as society is concerned, I agree with you. As far as
Mhm.
someone getting out of college when you already have your master's, it could be a bit annoying. But
Yeah, no, that's
I
totally fair.
yeah, I think you're right. These things are built usually with the public's best interest in mind. So,
Mhm.
it makes sense, even if it could be a little frustrating. I do want to
Oh,
ask,
yeah.
how do you feel about job security? Is it something that you worry about, or do you feel like you have quite a stable job that you can work as long as you want?
Yeah, that's one of the poles of social work. We're always gonna need need them. I might lose my job. There's always gonna be companies that need social workers. It's one of those, like, safer professions when it comes to that sort of stuff because a lot of people don't wanna do social work, so I'm lucky enough to have an interest in a field that will always need people.
Do you feel any threat from AI, and everybody's talking these days about AI is going to replace so many jobs. I feel like what you do is very innately human.
Mhm.
So I feel like maybe your field might be a little more insulated from that. Do you feel the same?
Yeah, I would say so. I think that some sort of like future where there's like robots that are able to help people with this would actually be really awesome. I always try and think of AI in the terms of at the turn of the 19th century, all of the workhorses were looking at these cars and they were like, they have no idea. They're going to be so useless. We have no idea that the car is going to come out and absolutely change the entire structure of our cities. So it's a TBD thing. I would love to see AI used in a way that lifts people up and supports them and provides them with the resources they need to self actualize and have a good life. But that's probably not how it's going to go immediately, at least.
Yeah, but something to strive for sure. I think that's a very bright future that I really
Hmm.
hope comes to pass.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you fit in with the people in your profession? Would you say that you're typical, or do you feel like an outsider or somewhere in between?
Uh, it's hard not to feel typical in a field like social work because the people are truly so like warm and welcoming in their own way. Social work in particular has a tendency to draw the people that have had a little bit of grit to their life. It's not always the traditional path that you would think, graduating from school, going on to doing a full-time job. It's usually the case where I'm surrounded by people like myself that have taken a bit of a curvy-worvy approach to life.
So I'd like to shift the conversation a little bit over towards coming to age. And if you'll indulge me, I want to get a little esoterical for a minute, talking
Oh, cool.
about your mindset and the way that you view the world. Looking back when you were a teenager and you're trying to decide, go to college, don't go to college, what do I want to do with my life, to where you are now, where you feel really fulfilled and activated by the work that you're doing. I imagine that there was a shift in mindset somewhere between teen and adult, and maybe it's still ongoing, like you're still formulating that mindset. But to wherever you are
Mhm.
now, was there a point or a few milestones along the way that marked big shifts in the way you view the world? And if you could describe a little bit how your worldview changed, I think that's really interesting to hear.
The biggest part of figuring out where I was going was truly giving up control. That can be a
Hmm.
religious thing. I know some people have found really significant change through their religion or personal beliefs in that way, spirituality. That wasn't the case for me. I grew up Roman Catholic. I was an altar server. I always had a negative taste towards Catholicism, but also religion in particular. Because in my head, I was like, "Oh, they're just a cult that got a bunch of people to agree with them." I was very angsty. Not my belief now. I think religion can do a lot of good for people. It's complicated. Anyways, being able to give up control and recognize that the reality that I find myself in is not something that happens solely due to my own effort or the people around me's effort. There's a massive cavalcade of circumstances that have resulted in where I find myself. And that is so completely out of my control in so many different ways. I could have never predicted not becoming a father. I could have never predicted a pandemic happening and having to pivot my whole life that way. Could have never predicted moving to West Virginia. There's just too many things that happened that I had no idea were going to happen. And then even as they were happening, I didn't know how I was going to respond to them, whether or not I would be effective in those moments. There's too many things, truly. So recognizing that you do not have control in this big thing we call life. And that isn't to say, oh, all hope is lost. Here I am. This is just how it's going to be. You do have agency. There's a difference there, like loss of
Kind of
control
swimming with
versus
the current
agency.
rather than against it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. You can take like a very doomer approach if you do like the hands off, I've lost control of the situation. But there is real power to recognizing that even if a situation isn't going the way you're planning, you're still here. You still have tomorrow. You still have the ability to make decisions that are either going to support you or not support you with the life changes that you're reaching for. So that was definitely like the biggest pivot mentally I was making and I continue to make. We think day to day We think in the moment, it's easy to lose track of that and get angry in traffic and be like, "Oh, why isn't traffic moving?" Maybe there's a car crash above, like, on the bridge. In Pittsburgh, we have a lot of bridges, so maybe something's blocked up there that's, like, completely unrelated to you. You don't know. And taking those moments with grace and also understanding that it's okay to have these goals and also recognize that sometimes you're not gonna be able to reach for them in the way that you want to.
Yeah, I mean, that certainly seems like quite a big shift. Thanks for breaking that down for us. In a very similar vein, would you say that your personality has changed? Is it an evolution of who you were when you were younger? Or have you really taken on a new sense of who you are as you've gone through all of these experiences?
Yeah, I like to think of it like a tree. You have your general, like, oak tree that's going to look a certain way. But as trees age, they develop rings. Those rings are dependent on so many different things. It might be propelling something from itself, rejecting it from its like core. And that's the same thing with personality. We are something that has developed over time, and the changes that happen with it are so inconceivably small. It's hard to really keep track of that. I have always been a very caring person. I've always been somebody that wants to do right by others. That hasn't changed at all. I would say I've become a lot more cynical, but also compassionate as the years have gone on. Just having been living life for this long, you don't get here without realizing some pretty harsh truths about the world. And that brings a lot of cynicism with it. But I've also been able to combat that with compassion and a few truths that I've learned along the way that help with that hard medicine to swallow.
Seeing how dark the world can be, but never letting go of the hope that you can get through it. I agree
Yeah.
with that. I think a lot of people find a deepening of that as they make this transition in life.
That was such a better way to put that. You summarized that in like 10
That's what I'm here
words.
for.
Yeah, that was perfect.
I exist to digest things and try and make it
I
as
love
useful
that.
for people as possible. So hopefully it
Yeah,
helps.
that was great.
And
Good job.
my next question for you. Have you ever felt
Mm.
some pressure to fill some kind of predefined role in society? Has that affected your path at all? Or is it not really something that you have had to worry about?
That's such a big question. I,
We only
I'm
ask
this
big
house.
questions here, Joe. We're having deep
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
conversations.
I'm starting to recognize the theme of this show. I could take that in so many different ways, all of which I find fascinating. I don't think the listener might find that as fascinating as me.
If you give us the
As
Reader's
far
Digest,
Yeah,
the
I
Cliff
like that.
Notes.
That's, what you did before, that was really good. I'm gonna steal that. Yeah, no, 100%. I have found myself wanting to fit a very specific type of person. Shout out to my people who are able to just live life without thinking about every small decision they're making. That's a superpower. Hold on to that. If we get into the weeds of it, you could break down everything you do and it wouldn't really help you. It would just draw awareness to it. That can be a good thing, but everything in moderation. So 100%.
You had to put it really concisely. Like, what's this role that you've been pressured to fill in society?
Yeah, it's the idea of being a man in a world where there are so many different directions you could take your own responsibility as a man in America in particular. I don't know about a lot of countries a lot of the time what their sort of standards are, but I know in America we had this sense of being like a caregiver, the responsibility of providing for the family, and finding out that's not the expectation exactly anymore, or it's not a realistic expectation in the pockets of society where that is still going on.
I think we're in the middle of a really large period of change, like a
Mhm.
significant period of change where society's trying to redefine what it means to be a man necessarily, as we're not
Mhm.
happy with all of the traits that used to come with it, but we don't
Mhm.
want to lose the value and the essence of it.
Yeah.
How's that impacted you, your journey?
Well, you've got to think small with this. When it comes to character traits, recognizing specific themes that you want to carry on through your life, you can't go big picture right away. You have to figure out the small stuff first and then work off of that. Because if you go big picture, you're not going anywhere. So for myself, recognizing that I'm a very caring person, that I like to feel like I'm lifting other people up. Those can be traditionally feminine traits, but there are some overlaps as far as being a protector, being strong, either physically or mentally having the ability to live in both lanes, which is the transition I've found most healthy in this process. There's a duality there that we've seen for a long time as conflicting or like harmonizing, depending on where you're looking at it. And it's possible to live in both lanes. It's just difficult when we have so many societal expectations put on us, especially with like toxic masculinity and the Andrew Tates of the world. It makes it trickier to flatten these ideas out and realize where you want to be versus where you are currently.
And I
Yeah,
think for
there's a
me,
lot
and I
there.
want to ask if you feel the same, I feel like the most useful way to go about that has been like, does this character trait serve me and who I want to be? Like, we're
Mhm,
trying to worry less about whether or not you are fitting people's expectations of you and more of are you fitting your own expectations of yourself?
mhm,
Does this
mhm,
make me the type of man I want to be? And starting to define it for yourself since society is not offering something that's clear. I think that we're living at this time where the idea of being a man, the pressures of what people want and what they expect are very double-sided swords. Like
mhm,
the classic one is you should be vulnerable, but we should never see you cry. These types of
mhm.
like
Yes.
paradoxes that are placed upon men these days.
Yeah.
Does that ring true for you? Do you harmonize and does resonate with you this idea of really developing your own meaning and what is useful to you?
Yes, I feel like it's relevant enough that I can plug it. Brené Brown, she's a fantastic author and she writes a lot about being a man in this sort of like turbulent culture. So if you're wanting to really dive in on this, look up anything by Brené Brown and it'll help you out. There's this short story she tells of a man who was going to a convention that she was attending and hosting. And he comes up to her and he's this like old dude, grandpa sort of figure. He has a little salt, pepper stubble. He's got a cane. He looks like your traditional like man's man who's lived a life and like he probably has 50 grandkids or whatever. And he comes up to her and he's crying. And she's like, "Oh no, what's wrong?" And very stoically, he like fixes himself up and he points back to his family and he says, "Those are like my kids and I love them dearly. And I know they would rather see me fall off my horse before I start to doubt the journey that I'm on." Basically, to say they don't want to see me cry because if they do, it means I'm not living up to their expectations. That's a real thing. People would rather die than be vulnerable, or they would rather die than express that it's hard out here, particularly men that I've seen throughout my life and in my work. We can't forget how important it is to be vulnerable. And at the same time, society is not built for men being vulnerable at this point. That's an impossible situation. So the way I would navigate that, or the way I've personally navigated that, is understanding that you got to think small. You got to find the people that really care about you and are able to support you, and recognize that it's okay for you to be struggling if you are struggling. And it's also okay to not be perfect in your own mind as you are right now. So it's okay if you're not able to cry in front of somebody. That might not be something you ever get the capacity to do, but finding like the small steps that make you feel like the man you want to be, whatever that looks like.
I think just I'd like to share. I know I'm a pretty open person. I can get vulnerable pretty easily with people if I get a read that I think that they're a good person and I can trust my whole self around them. And
Mhm.
there's been a strange for me like navigating that exact expectation that like it catches people off guard sometimes. I think it's a great way
Yeah.
to make fast friends and definitely would recommend it. But it puts you in this strange situation where you catch people a little off guard. And I think that on the flip side of that, I've also have a really hard time opening up in some really
Mhm.
significant relationships because I'm so used to like suppressing parts of myself that I feel like shouldn't be shared. A man keeps these to
Mhm.
himself, whatever, wherever that came from. Who knows? Maybe many years of therapy will one day tell me how to deal with that. But I just wanted to say, I also endorse this idea of being vulnerable with those who are meaningful to you because meaningful relationships are one of the key things that sustain a good life, in my view.
Mhm.
And we'll get to a little later in the show hearing about what you think of that. I do want to move into relationships and talk
Oh,
about
cool.
that. But before we do that, I don't want to skip as a gamer. You're on Gamers Growing Up. Are there any games, any video games, any board games, card games, what have you, that you have
Uh,
learned skills that you think you take with you into other parts of your life?
oh, cool. I love this question. I will say that 100% felt like the lead up to a sponsor. So when you do get sponsors, you're like very set for it
Please, we
because
need
that was
sponsors.
a.
Sponsor my show.
I won't say it, but we all know the sponsor that, whatever.
If you haven't drank any water recently, here's your hydration reminder because it's sponsor time. Have you ever noticed how every guest on this show sounds like they're using high quality mics? But how's that possible, you might ask? I don't have a soundproofed recording studio with $1,000 recording equipment. Most of the guests on this show don't even shoot the video in the same town as me, let alone the same room. What if I told you that some guests have even joined from their phones and still sound great? What's the secret? I'm no master audio engineer, but my friends at Riverside.fm are. They've taken the headache out of recording remotely and put the power into your hands so that anyone, anywhere can sound great. Their platform has AI-powered voice processing that gives your audio the magic it deserves. While they're not a sponsor of this podcast yet, I'd sure like them to be. Riverside.fm makes the show possible, and if you'd like to see them support GGUP, please tag them and let them know in the comments. Your voice has power, and securing sponsorships will help me ensure this podcast continues on for a long time to come. Thank you, Riverside.fm, for the wonderful audio processing tools. Are you enjoying the show? Do you want to let your friends know that this is your new favorite podcast? You should head on over to the official GGUP merch store and get that legendary loot. Get dripped out, stylish shirts, hats, and even stickers. There are over 100 designs created by yours truly, and you can get them all on all kinds of things. Click the link in the description to check out the merch store today. Now back to the episode.
Yeah, skills from video. This is a weird one. It's very niche, but there's this mindfulness technique that I use pretty regularly where I imagine my health bar from Slay the Spire. I like picture that in my mind so clearly that I can almost see the after image of it if it's like dark enough or if I'm sleepy enough. And I use that to figure out how much more energy I basically have for the rest of the day. It's a very good check-in tool that I use pretty regularly. As silly as it is, sometimes the best tools we have are very silly, and that's a good combo.
I think longtime listeners are smiling when you say that. There's a section about health, and I do want to ask if you
Oh,
had a
cool.
health bar out of 100, an HP bar right now, where's your health
Uh,
at this point in your life? At this exact moment,
uh,
where are you at out of 100?
so it's hard for me not to think in terms of blood sugar for this. I have type 1 diabetes. So right now I'm really good actually. I'm rocking 128 milligrams per deciliter. I have a little sensor that I'm like a cyborg. I have an insulin pump and a cyborg sensor that are on my abdomen area. So that's like a very 1-to-1 ratio of, oh, I'm okay as far as blood sugar goes. As far as health bar in general,
Yeah, because this
we're
health
getting
bar,
towards.
I didn't give the full pitch for it. It's not just your
Oh,
physical
cool.
health, but your mental
Oh, I just
health,
kind
your
of
spiritual
ripped.
health, your whole being. How are you
Oh,
doing in a holistically?
cool, okay. I hit the ground running on that, I'm sorry. I
You're
would
good.
say oh gosh, this is so tricky. So, I actually majored in health science and wellness with a minor in psychology,
Hmm.
and the reason I bring this up is because we very clearly break down life into 7 dimensions of wellness.
Oh,
So,
whoa.
in addition to the health bar from Slay the Spire, a little bit less silly, I break down my life into the 7 dimensions of wellness pretty regularly. It's like a little check-in tool that I use.
Yeah, please share.
Wow.
Sounds like useful information for people to hear. What are those
Yeah,
7
it's
pillars?
they're intellectual, physical, social, spiritual, vocational, emotional, and environmental. Each of those could be broken down into like subcategories if you really wanted to, but I think staying with those like 7 terms is usually a good call for someone who's just getting into the idea of wellness or personal wellness. So I would say right now, I'm rocking like a solid 80 or 90 out of 100 as
That's
far as
awesome.
that is.
I'm very glad to hear that. And would you say that your work as well as your hobbies, how are those things affecting your overall health bar?
So that's the great thing about wellness. It's not like a stuffy system. This is part of the reason I majored in it, other than it being one of the majors I could do at my college in 2 years, which was a priority for me for some reason. So the way you can break this down is like everything you do is wellness, even if it seems like super mundane, like washing dishes. You can sort that into like emotional wellness or environmental wellness because washing those dishes makes your home environment more cozy, comfy. And then, like, emotionally, we carry a lot of energy when it comes to things that we have to do later. So it's like those are two small areas where just washing the dishes improves on your wellness. The way this is like a game changer, I think, for a lot of people is realizing that everything we do has value. Everything we do has meaning. It just might not be like the big capital M meaning. It's more of in this moment, I am choosing to participate in the world in this way. And there's a lot of fulfillment that can come from that.
But for you specifically,
Oh, I'm so sorry.
you're
I
good.
keep getting on my like tangents. So this is the problem with me having like too much stuff in relation to this because it's really easy for me to go off. I also love this stuff as a concept, so I apologize for any sort of tangents that are ridiculous. But for my job, you've got so many different things that are fulfilled through your work. Most of the time, it's usually just financial wellness, which is like a whole another category. That's sad. I hate it when the only thing work is doing for somebody is making sure that they're able to pay their bills because that shouldn't be how it is. Everything you do in your life should be able to lift you up in multiple ways. That's like my own personal philosophy. My own personal work is able to provide me with social encounters. I'm being physical usually. I sometimes walk with my clients. Intellectually, it's very stimulating for me to hear somebody's story and like work through them, getting to a newer place in their life. Environmentally, I'm in the community, so I'm driving around. I'm seeing different sites in Pittsburgh. It's a beautiful city. So I have that like natural splendor that comes with that. And then being in nature, because I'm driving around, that's a spiritual connection for me. So like already it's able to cover pretty much all of the dimensions of wellness. And that's how a job should lift you up. That's not necessarily how it is for most people though, which is sad.
So I want to move the conversation over to relationships for a little bit and ask you
Mm,
about you talked about this like very strong community and you have these really strong ties with your family. What about your
mhm.
friends? I know that you mentioned some of your friends have been really impactful in helping shape the path that you've been on. If you had to break down into percentages for us, where are your friends coming from in your life? Are they people that you grew up with, people that you met through your college and training, people you met at various jobs, or just in general as an adult, like meeting people through friends, stuff like that? What are the percentages of where your friends come from?
Oh goodness. Okay. That's complicated. I will do my best on this one as well. So I would say, as I am, 20% of my people are like from high school, ride or die sort of people. Narrowing that down to the last 10 years since high school. Wow, that's wild. A lot of those people have been through work. I've been very blessed as far as meeting like really incredible people through the jobs that I've had in my life. Not always the case. I will go to my grave saying good coworkers make or break a job, truly. If you enjoy the people that you're around day to day, work is not nearly as hard as it could be versus having a group of people that you're not looking forward to seeing. So that's a good chunk, probably another 20%, I would say. Currently, as I moved to Pittsburgh 3 months ago, I was commuting for a month and I've met a lot of people through Hinge, actually, which isn't the best way to do it, truthfully. I know that's a bad way to do it, but for myself, it works pretty well because I am single as a Pringle, as I said at the start of this episode.
Definitely my
Um,
experience, one of the better dating apps.
yeah, I like Hinge. It's fun. It is very hard when you have to be like, "Hey, you're a great friend. I'm not attracted to you, like, at all, but I would love to continue talking with you." I actually had to do that yesterday with one of the dudes that I met on Hinge, so that's not a fun conversation to have, and it does suck having to put people down that way, but you've gotta live true to yourself at the end of the day, so I'm in support of people finding people on Hinge and telling them that they're actually not their type. So that's a big chunk of people. Friends of friends is also a big chunk. I would say across the board about 20% each category. People I met in college is probably a smaller one, but still like significant, probably around like 10%. Yeah.
And when you're gaming, you're hopping online for some video
Mhm.
games, who are those people?
Those are mostly my ride or die people and friends of friends. So people that I've met through high school that I've continued to like make new. Actually, this is so funny. I don't know if this will go in the episode, but Nick is one of those people, a friend of a
That is
friend
true.
that I met through gaming, basically.
That's how I've been expanding my friendship network a lot in recent years after college. I think it's hard to just have chance encounters with people if your job doesn't
Uh,
get you out into the community that much.
oh yeah.
And so, yeah, I've been meeting a lot of people through friends of friends and would recommend it. It's a pretty nice way
Mhm.
to do it if you have friends with
Yeah.
friends you haven't explored yet, those connections.
One of my nephews that I helped raise, he has autism and ADHD, so he can get fixated on stuff pretty easily. And we used to go on walks all the time, and he would want to ask people a million questions and get to know them. And I had to break it to him. I was like, sometimes people are on a mission and you're not a part of that mission. I'm so sorry. But that's very true for people our age in particular. Like, usually when you meet somebody, they have a very specific goal that they're moving towards, and that doesn't always include you, sadly.
But I will say, it's a tried and true method for me. When I was a little kid, the first friends that I made, literally on the playground, just walked up to them and was like, "Hey, you want to be friends?" And
Mhm.
you'd be surprised in modern life. Like, as more of an adult, if you're talking to people around your age and you do the same, you'll be memorable. That's for sure. And mixed results, as with all
Okay,
things. But it is a fun
okay.
thing to mess around with.
Maybe I need to try that more. Maybe it's my own criticism that's holding me back from making a bunch of new friends, just in my day-to-day.
This is just my opinion. I feel like a lot of people are feeling quite lonely these days. And
Mhm.
it's a rare person who would turn down an offer of friendship, or at least who wouldn't explore it a little bit.
Oh, that's a sweet note to chime in on. Yeah, people like friends, people like people that they wanna hang out with. That's something you can always reach for.
So, to talk in a similar vein, but with your work, networking, would you say
Mhm.
that's something that's really important in your field? And do you engage in it a lot? If you do you have any advice for someone who might find it intimidating?
Yeah, it's sadly, we live in a world where everything is related to making money or having capital. And a big hurdle for myself, as far as growing up, is recognizing that you have to sell yourself to other people. It's just the way the game is played currently. So having that realization and then also recognizing that doesn't necessarily have to be you. You are showing up in a way that's effective. Being disingenuous with yourself is sometimes necessary. That's one of those hard truths. But that being said, I think the most
When you say
meaningful
that,
connections.
do you mean
Mm,
putting on a mask or
yeah,
something
absolutely.
to when you're, like, being professional? Okay. Yeah, that's fair.
100%.
Presenting the professional version of you.
Yeah. As the listener can tell, I'm a pretty open dude. I can't do that at work. That's a bad idea. Yeah. Having that shift of mind where it's like being able to be professional and then also being yourself, that's a balance that you
It's
have to
tricky
strike
to
somewhere.
navigate. Yeah.
Yeah. But when you do get it and you are able to make those professional connections, those will carry you so freaking far. Reach for those when you can.
What do you do
'Cause
to maintain them as time and life and circumstance pull you away, whether it's physically from these people or maybe you're just no
Mhm.
longer front of mind? How do you keep your network alive?
I'm a bad person to ask with this because I am very lacking on the upkeep side of things. Something I tell myself to reassure myself with that, I guess, is the Maya Angelou quote: "People might not recognize or remember what you did for them, but they'll always remember how you made them feel." It's very true. If you do show up and work and you're able to be like a caring, compassionate member of your business while also balancing a sense of professionalism and engaging with stuff appropriately, people will remember that and they'll be like, oh, that's Joe. He's reliable. Maybe he would be good for this future thing. And that's the reason why I'm going to grad school. One of my recommendation letters was a previous employer.
Almost building your reputation bar with people so that when a check comes
Hmm.
along the way, to take a gaming analogy, if you have a high enough rep, then that might open up opportunities for you that wouldn't be there otherwise. I think that's a neat way to look at it and definitely very powerful to think through the impact that you leave on people being maybe all you need when you reach back out
Yeah.
later down the road.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a beautiful way of thinking of it because it It makes it so much clearer than, oh, it's so complicated. No, it's a reputation bar. You just got to do the things that give you the numbers.
So moving the conversation towards satisfaction, fulfillment. You're one of these people who is so lucky. I don't know if lucky is the right word, but I will say lucky
It's
because I
lucky.
think that there's a
It's
chance,
lucky.
there's a mixture of good mindset, but also like just the fact that things have aligned for you all at once, where you have a job that you truly love and is
Mhm.
bringing you fulfillment. I want to know, in your view, what is the criteria of a happy life? What are the elements, the things that come together to make your life feel fulfilling, satisfying, and happy? And this is
I could go
personal to you.
Yeah, I could go so big picture and just be like stillness of mind, disconnecting the ego from the real. Like, could get very atmospheric on this one. No, the helpful stuff when it comes down to it is eat your gosh dang meals, get enough sleep, take care of the things that you most immediately need to take care of. That is how you live most effectively in any sort of moment. There's something in DBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, called vulnerability factors, and learning that has been life changing because it gives real weight to the importance of drinking enough water, using the restroom when you need to use the restroom, taking showers regularly. If you are able to set up a good baseline for yourself, everything's going to be so much easier. But that's easier said than done in this very hectic, wild life we find ourselves living.
So, you're talking about habits, and building these strong habits will allow you to set yourself up for success and for
Mhm.
your best shot at satisfaction. But what are the things that actually comprise this fulfilled feeling that you've been
Mhm.
able to grasp onto in current times?
Well, to go negative for a second, I spend and I continue to spend a lot of my life very sad. I have depression. I've struggled with that for a very long time. And realistically, that's something that's going to keep happening for myself. If you find yourself in a place like that and you see yourself going very dark, it's easy to accept that as your reality. I think something that's been really foundational for how I approach life is recognizing that the moment that you find yourself in that place is the moment. It's not necessarily the rest of your life. And I'm glad I've been able to find that sort of peace within the sadness because dialectically, it's easy to swing one side of that and double down. But if you're able to see the dual nature of feeling really down in the dumps versus feeling really happy and being able to savor the success and victory and fulfillment that you're finding in a moment is just as valid or equal to the experience of feeling horrible and feeling like a failure. The dual nature of reality is something I'm a big proponent of. It's not a cure all, but it certainly helps.
Think I've found myself in similar situations, and I think I've talked on the show before about this idea of being thankful and like really practicing some sort
Mhm.
of mindfulness in the sense of appreciating what you have, which sounds a little corny, but there
Well,
really is something to it, I think, of making some sort of daily practice of thinking through the things that are going well, and well as
mhm,
acknowledging the things that aren't going well. Giving yourself the chance to like plan and work through things you're not satisfied with,
mhm,
I think is equally as important, but maybe not quite as important as just appreciating the things that are going right. Because in a time where your attention's being pulled to compare yourself to others, it's really
mhm,
easy to undervalue what you already have, or to place all of your value and focus on things you haven't attained yet, or goals, or, there's
mhm,
nothing wrong with developing yourself, but you shouldn't ignore the good things that you have, because you're never going to be satisfied otherwise. It's really easy to fall into this trap of always chasing something and then not enjoying what you have. So I'm glad you said
yeah,
that.
yeah. To hark on that a little bit, to sound out a fun fact about psychology, we're still running off of the software that was related to like fight or flight. Oh, I might get eaten today. And we've just transferred that with the like extended awareness and ability to compare and abstractly think about things to our day to day living. So obviously, the immediate jump for that is finding everything that's wrong with whatever sort of situation you're in. And that'll drive you bonkers. We live in a safer time than we ever have realistically as a majority of Americans. There are obviously some more niche circles within that Venn diagram, but it's very easy to see all of the things that are wrong, and we're geared towards it. People train us from an early age to think about life in that way. There's weight on both sides of the scale.
So this is, I promise, the last number I'm going to ask you to throw out for me. But
Mhm.
if you had that same bar, like your HP bar, but it was for your satisfaction, your fulfillment with your life as it is right now in this moment, in this slice of Joe's life, out of 100,
Mhm.
what would that be?
That's a tricky question, because so much of my life is built around tomorrow I'm gonna get up for work, and I'm gonna go do some stuff, and then I'm gonna get home, and, like, I'm still caught up in the rat race of the moment.
Comparing against the highest and the lowest you could imagine your satisfaction with life being, if that's what 100 and
Mhm.
0 are, where would you say you are right now?
I would say a solid 80. I think that's
That's
accurate,
wonderful.
yeah.
And I think that makes a lot of sense when you talked about having a job that feeds into this sense of fulfillment is huge. And it's really awesome to hear that it's having such a
You
big impact on you holistically. Are you doing
Yeah, that's
anything
sweet.
actively to continue furthering this? And if you are, where's that motivation coming from?
There's the grad school. I would say the motivation for that is mostly intellectual. I like being able to do my job, but I'm very clearly able to see where I'm lacking in certain skills. So going back to school would be fulfilling that intellectual need to be more effective at my job and be like a better social worker. That's where that's feeding into pretty regularly. Yeah.
Do you have anyone that inspired you? It can be real people in your life that are close to you or figures in the like pop culture or fictional characters. I'm just curious where people draw their inspiration from.
That's so funny because my mind goes to anime, but there's so many wonderful people
That's
that I've met in
okay.
my life, but regardless, there's
Maybe
still
give us one or two of each because I think that yeah, you can't discount the fact that stories have a large impact on how we could imagine our lives being.
just they're so good, and the writers are able to very clearly show progression, which isn't as clear in real life. But from anime, Edward Alric from Fullmetal Alchemist is my, like, guiding point of a kid that really just had super pure intentions, and it absolutely blew up in his face in a horrifying way. If you've seen the show, you know, you know. Having those, like, horrible things happen and still being able to pursue the things that he finds beautiful in life is a story that's always gonna make me tear up a little bit. Like, it's just the wounded hero is the archetype that, like, I coordinate with so strongly. Also, it's just a great story, honestly. As far as, like, real life examples of people that have, like, actually done really incredible things around me that I find inspiring, there is a friend of mine in Wisconsin who's actually a social worker. He's the reason I'm pursuing the licensure that I am, and he was one of those people that when I first met him, I was like, "Wow, that is, like, a really solid person. I will never be as good as this person," and I immediately went, like, negative, where I was like, "Ah, man," like, it's hard seeing this person because they shine so brilliantly. His name's Sam. He's phenomenal, and I think the stuff that I took away from him most clearly is your ability to have empathy for something is always there for you. Like, even when you feel tapped in all sorts of different directions, like, you can slow life down to a point where you are able to, like, care for another person, and that's a good thing. Because when we care about other people, naturally, we, like, lift ourselves up because we're connecting with society. So, that's just a
Yeah,
good dude that I met.
it's a really powerful tool to always try and put yourself into the mindset of other people and understand where they're coming from, especially when things
Yeah.
are not going so simpatico. Helping to navigate
Yeah.
conflict through that, I think that is a powerful tool for sure.
Yeah, and really quickly, like I showed in that example, when I first encountered that, the knee-jerk reaction is like comparison. Like that's so built into us, it's so natural, and that can sour empathy in a way, if that makes sense. But you gotta push through it and
So would you
realize
say that like jealousy and empathy are competing forces in your view?
as somebody who has studied emotions and it's like basically my job to unpack this sort of stuff, jealousy is a
Hmm.
very good emotion to have, actually. It feels really
Huh.
yucky because of the societal connotations we have around it. All of your emotions are good except for shame. Shame is actually the only bad one, really. But all of your other emotions that you experience day to day are telling you something. And just because that something is a nasty package doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It's just pointing you in a direction that you should either follow or investigate further to find peace in that feeling. I'll get off my soapbox.
So I want to talk a little bit about purpose
Uh-huh.
and what that means for you. I know that to different people, it is more or less of a driving focus. Would you say that you have found your purpose? Is it something you're still figuring out? And is it something that matters to you?
I have a whole philosophy on this. I'll break it down into the soundbite version. Purpose is a small thing. It's a weird way to approach such like a big concept, but purpose is a small thing. If you try and find purpose in a massive thing, your mind will just naturally find what's wrong with it, and that's going to drive you bonkers. If you're able to find purpose in the small things, it's harder for your mind to naturally invalidate it. So for myself, the purpose that I draw on pretty regularly is I'm here to experience life. I'm here to observe what's going on around me. Every now and then I interact with my environment and I sometimes have a good impact, sometimes I have a bad impact, but overall my purpose is to observe and respond to external stimuli. That's who I am and what I am at the end of the day. It doesn't need to be bigger than that because that is massive the more you look into it. But it feels really small when you say it in 20 words or so.
A very unique take on the subject. So you'd say it's small, but do you think it's important? Is it something that you think about often? Or have you come up with this definition and that's enough for you? You don't worry about that too much. You focus your attention on other things.
It's something I have to remind myself regularly. You have to have your root core to being. And I think that's what purpose is usually the synonym for. Language at the end of the day is abstract and it fails us a lot of times. We get caught up in our words, we get caught up in saying something perfectly. At the end of the day, the way we communicate isn't the thing you're supposed to be experiencing, is my take. Again, this is all deeply personal. For some people, this might be like the opposite of good advice. But yeah, we live in a world of material things, and there's also some spirituality thrown on top of that. If you start thinking in terms of symbols, you're just going to get lost in the weeds. It's only a matter of time before those symbols fail you.
So would you say your view of your purpose had any impact on making like big life decisions, like what you were going to do for work? Or was that guided by something else?
I think they kind of evolved in tandem. It's taken me a long time to come to a more solid, peaceful sense of purpose in my own life. That's a more recent development. I obviously was going to nursing school right out the gate with high school. So I always knew I wanted to be in some sort of a caretaking role. It just so happens that I developed this sense of purpose alongside that.
Gotcha. And we've reached a part of the show that I fondly call the counterspell. You get a chance
Ooh.
to ask me any one question. You want my opinion on something? You want to know what I think about something? Here's your chance. One question you want to ask me.
Okay. So we talked about it a little bit during one of our breaks, and I haven't been able to shoehorn this subject in. So I wanted to give you a platform to express your thoughts on the male loneliness epidemic. More specifically, what do you think people can do to most effectively help themselves out of that sort of loneliness rut?
I think I'll push for this to be a dialogue between the two of us because I don't think anybody has the one solution. I'm definitely
Oh, cool.
think it's important to talk about it. I'd love to share my thoughts on it. I think
Uh-huh.
that the male loneliness epidemic is very real and very heavily being felt by many of us young men, not just young
Mhm.
men. I think that in general, society these days is separating quite a lot. Everybody's finding their little group and spending a lot of time with their little group. And we're having less and less of a collective sense of who we are. This is really specific to America right now. I've only lived here. I can only really speak on the sense of a young
Mhm.
American because it's my lived experience so far. But
Mhm.
I think that our society has lost this like core set of beliefs or values or outlooks on life. And that's where a lot of this societal strife is coming from. Is we're trying to redefine like what we care about, what we believe, as it's becoming more and more common for people to pick their colors and stand in their camps and view people as
Mhm.
their friends or enemies when in reality we're all just neighbors. I think. But we're neighbors
Yeah.
who are spending a lot of
Yeah.
time online. And I think that there's a lot of great
Yeah.
things that come with that. There's a lot of fun you can have gaming with your friends. You can learn a ton of stuff on YouTube or on the internet. You can go to school on the internet. You can work online, but it's putting a strain on relationships. And I think especially like it is hard to date. I don't think you're going to find any single person in America right now who would tell you it's easy to date unless they are
No.
incredibly attractive and blessed with the most abnormal genes. I think most people
Mhm.
find it pretty intimidating. Those people who are in relationships that I've talked to fell into it or it just happened to work out. They got really lucky, things aligned. Both people were into each other, so it wasn't that big of a deal. And you have the other side of that where there's been this long running objectification of people and it's driven
Mhm.
a wedge between men and women trying to date. I know just for the heterosexual take on it, there is this divide between the genders that I think people are trying to find ways to heal and nobody has the one right answer. But big long tangent to say that I think that people are feeling very isolated and it's harder to relate to people than ever. What we can do about that, I think what seems to be really effective is just leaning into your friendships. Meeting
Mhm.
people through your friends seems to be one friend can be enough to open doors for you into the lives of a whole bunch of other people. If they are someone who's social and you're not, or they've been in an area and you just moved there, I think that is a good approach to it and will
Mhm.
help you get tapped into networks of people who share similar values. Since that is the one flip side of this, that as society is becoming more segmented, the people with similar values are gathering together. So, as you
Mhm.
define what matters to you as an adult, there is an opportunity there to try and find people who are in alignment with that by making friends and tapping into communities. I know that I meet a lot of people by going to concerts, just going by
Oh, cool.
yourself and talking to people in line. You all already have a shared interest. And if you like a certain type of music, especially if it's a little more niche, that draws a certain crowd. So it's a great place to go and meet similarly minded people. But yeah, just not giving up hope and trying to find new friends and new relationships through making friendships in the people that are accessible to you. I That would be my recommendation. I don't have a perfect solution. I wish I did because I would be practicing it and it wouldn't feel so
Oh.
lonely. How about you?
That's a lovely response. I'm very much in agreement with all those things you said. And I would like to add that it's tough out here. It's important to like recognize where you're at. And if you are one of those people that, have fallen out with some friendships or you haven't been able to set up the romantic connections that you've been desiring throughout your life, or if you really feel like you have no friends at the end of the day, that's tough. That's really hard, and for us little humans, that's just as painful as, like, physical pain. Our brains literally see social rejection or, like, lack of community as a social injury. You can think of it as almost like having a broken arm, so recognizing that's a really hard place to be, and it also should be a place that you're only at temporarily.
It's important to keep in mind if you know someone who's going through this, that it's compounding also. Because we've talked so much about how your support network helps you through the hard times. And if you don't have a
Mhm,
support network, those strong friendships, and you're
mhm.
really heavily leaning on family or the few relationships that you do have, if you're feeling particularly disconnected from your community, that it just adds to it. And I think that's hard to see sometimes, the full depth of what someone's going through, looking from the outside.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not right. That's the way our society is structured, socializing and building meaningful relationships. That's a failing on society's part. That's not a failing on your own personal part. And because you are responsible for your own path that you're taking in life, if you want a friend, be a friend. It's a cheesy saying, but I think a lot of people are looking for friends in this climate we find ourselves in. So the best way to do that is be friendly with other people. Put yourself in situations where you are seeing other people where you're able to forge those meaningful connections. Like Nick, that's beautiful that you go to concerts and forge those connections because I couldn't do that. As somebody with social anxiety, no thank you. For myself, it's a lot easier for me to do one-on-one stuff. That's why I'm a heavy advocate of using Hinge in a bad way. 'Cause I don't find myself getting lost in the weeds when I'm just talking to a single person, and I can, like, make good connections there.
I would be remiss if I didn't plug the Discord community that we're building here. The whole point of Gamers Growing
Ah.
Up is to bring people
Ooh.
together and build this community that supports each other. And for you to
Ooh.
be able to see that you're not alone, not knowing how to navigate this insane setup that we have of trying to transition into being a fully independent and sufficient and successful adult. It's not straightforward. We haven't had a single person come on the show who, thus far, has taken a really simple, straightforward path and immediately found success. And I think that's what people's perception is. And what I'm trying to do
Yeah.
here is open up our collective societal mind and realize that it's not so simple so that people don't beat themselves up and we can try and fight back against some of this really negative mental health stuff that is a symptom of that. If all of society is telling you, hey, you should be successful by now, and you're in your mid 20s still living with your folks, or you haven't found a job that you find fulfilling, or you're not making as much money as you wanted to, or something went wrong with the path that you picked, like it's okay and you will get through it. And that's the point of the show. And part of that is having these relationships that support you. And what I want to do is build a community that provides that. So the simple and free and easy thing you can do, subscribe to the channel, you can share with your friends, and then go to the link in the description to join the Discord community where you can connect with other people who are going through the struggle, meet people who are farther along than you are and get advice. And that's a great path to maybe be on the show and then share your story with others.
Yeah. It's not your fault, but it is your responsibility when it comes to this sort of stuff. So talk to somebody online about video games. There you go.
Nobody's going to fix it for you. That is the hard part. So be part
Yeah.
of your own solution. Join the community.
Yeah.
Great question,
Exactly.
Joe. I'm glad that we got to talk about that. The last part of the show is something I like to call cheat codes. So if you could
Okay.
go back in time and talk to your
Uh-huh.
17-year-old self, you're just finishing high school, and you give him 3 pieces of advice, what would they be?
Oh, jeez. Oh my gosh. You know what's funny is I ask this sort of question to people all the time, and they either go like super sarcastic with it, get a Roth IRA and invest the maximum amount in that. That is
Hmm.
great advice. Like Roth IRAs, that's a good way to invest money if you're able to do that in your life right now. That, or they like do the real answer. And I think I'm going to try and do like a mixture of the two. The first bit of advice is take it slow. When you go fast, stuff breaks. Go slow. Really like figure out where you're at emotionally before you proceed. Yeah, that's just a huge thing that it's taken me 27 years to learn and continue learning. But when you rush through something or you feel like you need to be a very specific way, so you're like going through the motions of stuff, you don't learn. And more times than not, it screws you over in the end. So go slow, figure out how you feel about stuff before you act. That would be my first nugget of wisdom. My second nugget of wisdom is keep moving. Don't let yourself get into a rut where it's been like 10 days and you haven't showered. Or if you have a priority, stick to it, even if you're feeling really disenfranchised for a number of reasons. Like if you're able to keep that momentum going, you're going to be a lot better a few weeks from then when you're not feeling as crummy. And then the last piece of advice would be recognize when people love you. Like it's a big deal that you have people caring for you and they're choosing to spend their most valuable resource, which is time, to express that they love and care about you. And that's freaking huge, dude. We only get so much time on this earth. And I think some of the most meaningful moments is when somebody is like caring for you or trying to help you through a hard time or like wanting to help you through a hard time. So, first off, accept the kindness. Try not to get in your head about it too much. Try not to feel like a burden. People like caring about other people. And if they love you, they like loving you. So, those would be my 3 bits of advice.
I think those are great pieces of advice. And if you were talking to someone younger than you and they're looking
Mhm.
at aligning their life on a pretty similar path, so
Mhm.
they're thinking of ending up going into social work, or
Sure.
even you could probably answer this from your little bit of experience going towards nursing and talking about why that didn't align with you. Like, what types of people fit into these fields, would you say, are likely to find success there?
Oh, that's complicated. For social work in particular, you're going to get a feeling when you do stuff adjacent to it that this is like the ultimate thing for you. So it becomes super clear that this is the path you should go on. I know for myself, now that I've experienced the field of social work, I know I don't want to do anything else with my life. That's not always like a super clear and cut defined sort of thing. I think if you're able to find a job where you feel like you're providing real value, you have a community built up around you that you enjoy seeing regularly, and it supports all of your life decisions or things that you want to reach for in life. That's basically all you need. For example, I was a janitor for a long time and I got like real value from that because at the time it paid my bills. Granted, I didn't have many bills. I was still a kid. I loved my coworkers and I got a lot of value from just cleaning stuff because I knew it was something I could do really well. And it also gave me like the skills to maintain a household. If you're able to find those three things in a job, you're doing great. To go big picture and speak about nursing school a little bit, there are companies out there that will exploit you and break you down into your like smallest pieces. Sorry to go negative for a second, but realistically,
No,
this is
that's the
something that
point.
needs to be said.
Yeah.
Yeah, we live in a society where we are tools for a corporation to make more money, and that's really depressing and it's not going to fulfill you and leave you feeling good at the end of the day. I know for nurses in particular, this is like a really harmful thing because the job revolves around taking care of other people, but it like destroys you in the process.
Because of how demanding it is?
Yeah, it's demanding the amount of like physical altercations that you have. I mean, even in social work, I've had knives drawn on me. I've been threatened with a gun before. I've had somebody chase me through a basement completely naked when I wasn't sure I was going to be able to outrun them and they were a lot bigger than me. These jobs carry risks with them. That's not a hard thing to wrap your mind around. If you don't have a company that's like supporting you through those hardships and they're also not paying you enough and they're also telling you you're doing a bad job, get through more patients, that's a bad thing. Don't do it anymore. If you have a choice in that matter and you don't have immediately pressing bills, give yourself the space to find another job. Because for myself, I knew nursing was going to lead to a whole bunch of things that I would rather not do because these people are not being supported in the way that they deserve to be supported. It's a great field. Three of my sisters are nurses. Like the world needs nurses, but they're not given the respect that they deserve. So remember that you are, at the end of the day, like your ultimate priority, taking care of yourself and giving yourself the nourishment that you need spiritually, physically, financially. That should be the priority. A company making more money off of you isn't going to help you with fulfillment. That's jank.
So, talking about this 17-year-old looking at these fields, what I'm hearing is that they need to be someone who has a lot of fortitude, someone who has a lot of strength of mind to be able to endure the real hardships that come with this, seeing suffering and people struggling and real sickness and sorrow in life that comes alongside all of these joys of growth and recovery that being a healer in society carry with it. So I think you're saying that this sense of fortitude is really important. I would imagine some sort of like perseverance and as well as a calling to serve in some way, serve others, serve your community. Could you talk on both of those things? Am I right in thinking those are traits that someone would want to have if they go into these fields?
Once again, Nick, you have just perfectly taken my ramble and put it into actually decent bit of information. Absolutely. Fortitude, strength of will, an indomitable sense of goodness is all super helpful to have, but those aren't things you're going to have right off the gate when you start your career. I for sure did not have those things. That's something I had to pay attention to and nurture over time. But having your eyes set on certain characteristics, being able to care for other people, being able to emotionally handle these like difficult things, being quick on your feet, that's just a good thing to have for all jobs, I'm pretty sure. But you'll find that you've been nurturing all these things all along, even if you haven't been working in the field. Life is so complicated. You're working on things that you don't even really understand or have a strong comprehension of yet, but you're putting in work regardless.
What about for creatives? So, a 17-year-old looking towards working in the social work field. Do you think if like being creative is really important to them, would they find an outlet for that, a way to feel fulfilled? Or is there a different mindset that this type of work applies more specifically to?
My own philosophy is that it's all related in some way when you're building on this like creative energy that we all have within ourselves that can
Oh,
manifest in a million different ways. I know in my own personal job, like flexibility is something I've learned from. I've played a handful of musical instruments throughout my life and I've gotten pretty good at like improvisational skills. How that shows up in my social work job is I'm able to think on my feet quickly. I'm able to take an idea and express it in a more effective way or in a more aesthetically pleasing way so that my client doesn't have a knee jerk reaction to it that might be less productive as far as moving the ball forward. Yeah. As far as pursuing just like a creative job in general, go you if you're doing that. That is, I think, the hardest thing to do in this day and age, like being a creative and wanting to have that be your main source of income. Like, that is incredibly brave. And please keep trying because we need more inspiration in this world, and creativity just fosters that naturally.
I think I ask that because as someone who is very highly creative, that's something that's really important to me that I get to be creating and designing and working in that mode of thinking. And I think that there's a lot of fields or a lot of jobs that you would think you get to be creative in. And there are a lot that you wouldn't associate right off the bat with that. So it's interesting to hear you talking about like a lot of the improv that comes with dealing with people and being in this very like person centric work. I know that myself, I went into a big design field and ended up
Mhm.
working production, basically just sitting and worrying about codes and red tape from governments. And it was completely creatively unfulfilling, even though I'm in
Mm.
a creative field. So that's why I like to ask that because I think that it's hard to navigate finding it's not that just that it's hard to navigate, it's hard to identify potential places where creativity could be expressed in a way that's fulfilling for someone that's really important to them if that's something that is core to who they are and what they want to be doing in life. So, thanks for
Yeah.
speaking on that a little bit. And do you have any general advice to this person setting out on the path of being a social worker that you think could help them succeed a little faster than you did? If someone is like, yep, this is the right thing for me, what should they be doing in order to build success in this field?
My path into it was non-traditional, so it's hard for me to give like the like boilerplate response, I would say, to that
Hmm.
question. But from what I understand about social work as a field is volunteer, network when you're volunteering, and be in your community as much as possible. Like most of my coworkers, they have a background in like social work as an undergrad degree, and everything that they talk about as far as like getting the job that we currently work has to do with finding some sort of organization in the community that one looks really good on a resume, and then two is able to naturally just foster those skills of inspecting somebody's life, seeing how we can help them, and then putting them in touch with organizations. So
Sorry
yeah,
to really dig in here,
network.
but what type of things look really good on a resume? If I'm 17, I want to start volunteering a little bit to build my rep bar in this community or on this path. What type of things look good on a resume? Should I be working at a food bank? Should I be
Question.
working where am I what am I looking at?
At the end of the day, do the things that you know you're gonna be able to do consistently, because that's 1,000 times more valuable than something you're gonna struggle to do every single week. If you know you don't like being around old people, don't go volunteer at a nursing home. Find the things that at the end of the day you're gonna look forward to waking up and going and doing, because those are going to be so much easier. That being said, stuff employers really like to see is like volunteering at food banks, like you said, volunteering at nursing homes, volunteering with like environmental stuff. I know is really, it's become more popular as the years have gone deeper into climate change. I know for myself, I used to do like trail cleaning and like helping get rid of invasive species in like forest preserves. So if you have those around you, go do that. And then also, if you're heading into the medical field, they really like to see anything performance wise on your resume. So, like for myself, I played in orchestra in high school and college, and I put together like a small quartet where I played cello. That's something people in the medical field really like to see because one, it shows you're able to like put on a face and perform in your role. And then two, it shows that you're able to like put your mind to a skill and really learn it in a powerful way. So extracurriculars, very good.
Interesting, and not what you would originally think, just looking from the outside in. So, thank you for this deep and thoughtful look into your slice of life, Joe. We really have it's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Yeah, thanks, Nick. It's fun. I appreciate it. I'm looking forward to listening to the other ones because I'm sure they're put together a lot better as far as phrasing.
It's been great. And this has been
Yeah.
Gamers Growing Up. And then I'll do some outro after that, and we'll be good to go. Do you hear that? It's the call of the tavern. If you enjoy this show and want to join a community that supports one another, you should click the link in the description to join the GG Tavern Discord. We're going to be hosting game nights, networking events, and community discussion boards there. It's also the best place to stay up to date with everything going on with GGUP. There's currently a special promotion going on called the Founders Event. The first 100 people who get 5 of their friends to subscribe to the podcast and DM me proof will gain lifetime access to a special role in the Discord server where you can enjoy some of the special perks that will otherwise only be for paid supporters of the channel. Also, the first 500 people to join the server can claim the OG title for eternal bragging rights that you were an early adopter of the show. Come on into the tavern and connect with the community today.